Hello, podcasters. It's Friday. We are here with bonus content to talk a little more about the theology of suffering. Maybe we'll call this When Words Get in the Way. Welcome to Kingdom Speak with Pastor Daniel McKillop and Pastor Tom Trimble. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Friday.
It's Friday again.
Another Friday. We've recovered from the Biblos takeover.
Woo.
And have regained control of our channel. After being...
Strong-armed.
Yes, after being strong-armed. And boy, it's good to see you two fine gentlemen again.
Good to be back.
It's good to be here,
Good to
isn't
be
it?
back.
It's good to be here. And I don't know if you noticed... because we've been getting ready for this Tom Trimble episode, we had an episode release, I don't know, about 4 years ago.
About 4 years
ago. A listener chimed in on something we talked about behind closed doors.
Oi.
Think about that.
Oi. Was that one of the first episodes?
Yeah. And
Seriously?
we have somebody chiming in
Cringe.
saying, listening now after seeing all the doors opening and revival that has already begun. God is faithful. Love hearing this perspective over again. So good. And yes, we would agree with you. It is much better now that the doors are open, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely.
So we will say amen to Kinsley, and thank you for going into the archives.
Can I get an amen? Amen! Can I get a hallelujah? Hallelujah!
It's always a dangerous game to go into those archives and begin to look at that stuff from 4 years ago. The things you see.
I don't want to. I don't want to go there.
The things you see or don't see at times, Producer Randy.
You remember
We'll
Randy?
never get it off the hook.
I can remember Randy while we would be in my library.
Oh, yes.
There was a door on either side.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that the cameras we were using had to be reset every
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
30 minutes.
So Randy would turn on one of the cameras and
Circle back around.
Tiptoe.
with his shoes off
Tiptoe. Yep.
because you would hear the click clacking as he went down the hardwood hall.
Yep. Yep. That's right. We had our lifetime table with the black
Yes, we did.
The
tablecloth.
lifetime table, the table with the garbage bags in the windows.
Oh, yes. The garbage bags.
Oh, man.
And what you guys don't realize is that I worked in that office every day with garbage bags over the windows.
That was the office
For the
takeover.
sake of the recording.
Yes.
Those were the good old days, we call them.
Something like that. Yep.
Now, people are going to think that we have Tom Trimble on again.
Good.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Like, so we have all of these extra, people in the audience today. It's like, hey.
He's back.
Yeah. The first episode was so good.
There'll be nobody more shocked to know he's back on than maybe even him.
They're like, wow, you
He's
were
gonna
back on Kingdom
what?
Speak again?
Yeah, we used AI
Yeah.
and we
He's wearing the same
generated.
suit again today.
What I really think is that he should come back on again.
Could listen to him all day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just looking up the date. This was July the 12th, 2024, when we had Pastor Tom Trimble on. What do you guys remember about that episode?
One of the things that stick out to me, and I was going to ask, I'd like to hear what each of your guys' take was. One of the takeaways for me was when he talked about some of the music that we write. Remember him talking about that?
The foot of the cross.
And saying that he finds a lot of the material that is sung now couldn't be sung at the foot of the cross
Correct, yeah.
because Jesus would have had to come down off of the cross. What a powerful insight. So then as a songwriter, which he is, he said that he tries to write songs from this perspective. God can.
Correct, yes.
Not God will. Yeah. There was so many though. That another one was when he was talking about how his wife was trying to cope with the loss of their son and how she gained so much strength from the fact that Jesus didn't even keep his own mother from having to experience that.
Right.
That she got solace from him. Those are a couple of the points that really stood out to me. I'd like to hear from you guys what your...
I think the point, I think we're going to get into it some today, but I think that was impacting to me was his testimony was very powerful. We don't hear a lot of talk on this level of grief and that it's very real. And I think the biggest thing for me is words are not always the best solution.
Yeah.
And I think he talked about that, where you telling them something may not always be the best. And I think, I forget the story, one of the most impactful moments by one of his friends he didn't even see. Was it a pizza, or there was something that was just delivered to him and left at the door.
Yep.
Right.
Well, he talked about, and I'm pretty sure it was on this first episode and not here. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm dropping stuff that you'll hear again. But what really resonated with me was when he talked about the fact that he didn't want to talk to people, but he needed to be around people.
Right.
Right.
So be in the room and just talk to each other, but don't talk to me, was one of the ways that, at certain stages, obviously this is not forever, but in those initial stages of almost the shock of the grief that you're dealing with, is that you want to be left alone, but you don't want to be alone.
Just the presence of being around people. Yeah, I remember him talking about
so
that.
So the need of the buzz and the hubbub and the people cooking in the kitchen and was needed, but yet it was overwhelming to try to converse with people.
Well, that's it, right? Because I think he put a good balance in the fact that now's not a good time to compare war stories, right?
That's right.
Now's not the time to talk, to tell me the experience you had about losing your whatever.
Right.
Right? Like, we're not going to focus on, well, you got pain, I got more pain, or similar pain, or different pain. Like, I want to be in the room and just be around friends.
Yep.
Right?
Something that sort of caught me off guard was him talking about his mom. Yeah. I mean, we all know about his son.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa, the story about his mom was incredible.
And that really was the one that began him on the journey of developing the theology of suffering.
Right.
Yeah, like when you hear him, and if you haven't listened to the episode, this is our shameless plug, but man, that was like, it set him up.
Yeah.
To then when he, we all know about the tragic loss of his son, Anthony, but man, just the whole thing about his mother to me was, I did not see that coming. I did not know his background. So when he started talking about suffering, I'm like, oh man, this is even way bigger than just, his just the story about his son.
How did he say that? I had one of two choices to make, either accept it and move on or get mad at God. And I just didn't have the strength to get mad.
That's right.
Yeah,
didn't have it in me.
Didn't have it in me to just to get mad at God. So
the other thing I like about Pastor Trimble is just the tone of this episode.
Yes.
It's like you're sitting shoulder to shoulder and he's just talking under his breath the whole time.
Yes.
About this topic. And I think it's just phenomenal. The subject matter, but the tone of how he brings you in close.
Yes.
And you can just feel what the man has been through.
You can feel the grief. You can feel it.
You can feel it. But you can also feel the theology of what he's talking about.
Yes.
And that perspective is, wow. It doesn't leave you feeling just sad.
That's right.
In correspondence afterwards, expressing the gratitude, because we have received volumes of feedback on this episode. And I said, just thank you for allowing God to use you to help us, to help our audience. And his response was, he was appreciative, but then he said, I didn't sign up for this. This was not what I wanted. But he handles it with such a just a theological soundness.
Yeah.
I mean, if you flip through the comments on our YouTube section for this episode, there's people on here, saying stuff like, I lost my husband 5 months ago. This podcast helped me more than I could have ever imagined. There's just people talking about, I saw one listener here who was talking about his son and how they remember him as being a drummer in the early 2000s. I can't find the exact one now. Yeah, Anthony was a godly influence growing up. He played drums at the Tennessee youth camps back in the early 2000s. It's just the memories of listeners that brought this stuff out. It was cool. It was a great episode. I got to say, it's one of my favorites.
Sure. And when we were getting near the end, and this is where we got some bonus content to drop today. The subject matter required, and it really is worthy of even more time and bandwidth than what we gave it. But when we got to the end of the discussion, there were just a few more points that, in conversation with him personally or hearing him give other interviews on this matter before, that I just felt like he needed to talk a bit more about how we can come alongside and be either of assistance or hindrance to those that are suffering. And so that's what we're going to air today is some of his advice for that.
Yeah, I thought this was very insightful because it's one thing to go through this and survive, but he not only has that, he has come through and now he's willing to share with us, okay, if you're around somebody that's going through this, this is what you should or maybe shouldn't do.
Yes.
And
in fairness, because of this, it's a two-edged sword. What do you do when someone is in tragedy?
Correct.
As they're coping with tragedy, you're outside that emotional sphere of impact, but yet someone you love is being impacted. What do you do? Do you knock on the door and say, hey, or do you just leave them alone and give them a week to grapple with it? What do I do? And I think everybody has felt the awkwardness of, what do I do at this moment?
I think it starts very, very, I agree. And I'm just saying, to even broaden the spectrum of this, I think it starts even, when you're in the line for a funeral and you're going to talk to the family, some people find it really hard to know what to say, even at that level.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's an awkward time. And then, one of your friends struck down by tragedy and you got to go to the house and talk to people. Like, do you feel ready to talk to those people? That's not my favorite scenario to be in.
Right.
This
another layer on that again is even for the pastors that will be listening to this.
Sure.
You feel like there's almost that pressure of, I have to have an answer.
That's it. Right. It's not about the answer.
Why did this happen? And
Yeah.
And
it's going to be very intimidating.
Oh,
very
man.
intimidating.
Absolutely. So he gives some personal experiences.
Maybe
here.
we'll go a while and then we can stop and chime in after we get going here.
So one of the things that we talked about, Pastor Trimble, was that really impacted me, and I would like for you to just address it, is you've spent so ably this past few moments talking about how suffering has impacted you. What about those that are trying to help people through that process of suffering? And we've all been there, where you hear of tragedy and you want to be there for that person, but you don't know whether you should call. And if you do call, you don't know what you should say. Is there any insight that you could give us to that process? How can I help someone like you when you're going through something like that?
Absolutely. The words will get in your way. Words are not your friend. when you're trying to help somebody through tragedy and loss, they will absolutely get in your way, and you'll stumble. I think it's probably one of the healthiest and helpful things to say is, I do not have the words. I, Anything I say is too small to match the level of your loss. I just want you to know how much I love you. And presence, honestly, presence is the best thing.
That.
Presence, just showing up, just being there. Now,
I think that's
That is such a revelatory piece, because that's you feel that. Someone, again, that's outside the sphere, you're like, the first thing I want to hear is, if you're going through tragedies, I want to be there. But the thing that will repel me from doing it is I don't know what to say when I get there.
yeah.
So that right there, presence,
Just showing up.
just
he says.
show up, hug me, tell me that you love me and you're praying for me, and just be there. That is
Yeah.
so.
careful with that, because there's got to be time. People don't want you to see them melt down in front of you.
Sure.
They have to have time with their family where they don't have to keep up appearances. Okay, I even had people that was, and I love the help. Okay,
Sure.
but I had people that would bring food and so on, and I was so grateful, because those are the things you don't have time to do and you don't want to do. You don't want to worry about. If somebody just brings by a casserole, it's just so helpful. But here's where it's tricky: when they stop and try to express and try to walk through that journey with you, when it's so recent, it's just hard to do that, because all of a sudden I'm back in pastor mode,
Yes.
or I'm
Yes.
worried about whatever I'm going to say, and I don't want to have to worry. I want to just cry. I just want to be family and weep. And I can't do that around a bunch of people that are not in my closest family circle, really.
I think this is interesting to stop here for a second. This sheds a bit of light on what it's like to be a leader and go through something like this,
You said it. That's it.
right?
That's it.
That's very insightful to hear him say that,
Yes.
and to think about, as a leader, you don't want to be vulnerable like that, but yet you have to be.
Because the impact, we've seen it even recently, and we had the conversation with Sister Hodges a few weeks ago.
Sure, yeah.
But we've seen it in more recent weeks with churches that have been impacted by the loss of a pastor.
Yeah.
You're visualizing the impact. It's so much more than just on that family, but yet they need to have the ability to walk through this as a family and not as a pastor. So you notice what he said there is you start interacting with me, and I have to reach back over and put my pastoral cap on.
Yeah, exactly.
And start ministering to you, because you are by extension being impacted. This was your pastor's son and a leader in that church, by the way. So you feel that need. That's a unique perspective that needs to be brought to the table here. If you lose your pastor, then your pastor's wife and family need to be able to grieve as a family and not just be immediately thrown into the chaos of having to minister to that church who's also lost.
And I think when that happens, you hear our esteemed guests say, show up, drop some food off, tell me you love me, and then leave,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it's not to talk down to people. It's, you don't know what to say anyways. So don't try to say something because it's not going to make it better.
Well, and if somebody's listening to this and you're going, well, I've never struggled with knowing what to say. No, you need to listen.
You do struggle. You just never been told.
What you're saying is not helping.
Yeah, you should struggle.
You should struggle.
Yeah.
So put an alarm on your phone, and in 2.5 minutes, when it goes off, get out.
Time to go.
Go back to the car.
Time to go.
So the practical part, I've helped somebody. Somebody was coming to town one time and they said, I'm embarrassed. It was a friend of mine from out of town. I don't even have a suit to wear to this funeral. I said, I will help you. Let's go. And you just try it on and I'll get it altered. I'll take it to my tailor and we'll get it done. I took him to the store. We spent 30 minutes trying on a suit. And then I took it and got it tailored and delivered it to his house. And he didn't have to worry about it. I mentioned to you about the thank you cards. My job when my mother passed away was to send thank you cards for all the flowers. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because those 5 stages of grief, if you're familiar with Kubler-Ross's work, I really believe in that. I believe that's solid. I couldn't go through grief share kind of stuff early on, but a year and a half after I lost my mother, I tried to go through some of that processing. But the stages I think are real. But if you study the material, Kubler-Ross, when she developed a terminal illness, they asked her if she would alter or revise those stages of grief. And she said, the only thing I would revise, I wouldn't change the stages, but I would say that they can overlap or come out of order sometimes. So, you're in this initial stage of shock and denial. This didn't happen. And that's where I was when they asked me to write out the cards. I couldn't do it. I was in denial. To sign that card and say thank you for the flowers was to admit my mother was gone. And I couldn't admit it.
Yes.
And so just that practical act of helping someone and say, give me all of those cards. I'll send the thank yous.
Yes.
It's so practical. Just food, and praying. I think I've got a list of things you shouldn't say. That's a long one.
That's a long one.
That's another episode.
Do you care to share any of those?
I'll share them. I had someone very close to me say, well, at least you have another son.
Oh, my goodness.
Can you believe that?
Bro.
Yeah, words escaped.
And I'm sure, the person who said it wasn't
it.
trying to insult,
Sure.
right? But
Sure.
wow. And just when you hear him say that, it's like, oof.
Yeah.
How
We've all
must-
been there.
Oh, man.
We've all been there.
Well, when you're trying to figure out what to say,
You're just trying to spin something up, right?
let's focus on the son you still have. It's good intent, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got the list. And I think the screen capture of you right there. Oh, no. This is how we all felt when we heard him say that.
Yeah.
I've had others say, well, I lost an uncle.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
That's not helpful.
No, that's not helpful. No.
I mean, seriously, I know what you're going through. That is
No.
almost. Now, I will say that people that have lost a child, there is a deeper connection,
Sure.
but even that's not equal. Some people have lost a child. I had a friend that lost a child to a drug overdose. That's not what I went through.
Yes.
That's got to be much more horrible.
Yeah.
And so those are the things not to say. I can't imagine what you're going through is probably the most accurate. And I can't overemphasize the practical things. Bring a meal, drop it off. Don't expect conversation. Ask, can I take care of your dog? Can I run errands for you? Can I pick up somebody from the airport for the service? Those are the things.
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
That's it. Can I mow the lawn? Can I wash your car?
Yeah. It's as the cliche goes, it's the little things. But again, there's so much insight there. And it's great to hear. This is amazing.
Honestly, someone brought me some coffee while we were
This must be what
in the last hours.
Okay.
Someone just brought by some coffee. I wanted a cup of coffee so bad.
This is it. Yep.
And they brought me a cup of coffee, and it tasted like the nectar of the gods, you know. I don't. Are you a coffee drinker, Dan?
Absolutely.
Can I, you can cut this or whatever, but can I get a little tip? Send me your address. I'm going to send you one.
This was great.
Ah, he did
Have
that.
you ever heard of this Zojirushi
No.
thermos? Okay, I'm going to send these because it's the best in the world.
He did.
But
He did.
He sent it, and it is amazing.
So tell us about it. What
Like
is it? What is it?
it is truer than what he said. Like you can put. In fact, if I get up in the morning to go to the airport and I've got an earlier morning, and I make a cup of coffee and I put it in this thermos, I have to leave the lid off just so I can drink it.
Because it keeps it so
just
hot.
keeps it too hot. If you put the lid on that thing, and it's the design of it, it fits right in the cup holder securely. It's everything is just perfect, and you can literally come back at the end of a 12-hour day and drink it, and the temperature is right.
That's ridiculous.
It is shameless plug.
Oh, that's great.
The only thing wrong with it is that it doesn't have a Kingdom Speak logo. That's it.
there's a rabbit trail there. But I want to dial you in, my brother.
Okay.
And when you get, you're gonna send me a message back and say, "You're the man."
Where have you been all of my life? Yeah. He is the man.
It's not just about the taste; it's about the temperature.
Yes. Hey, that is exactly. And that's
That
what
is
it
it,
is, for real. It just keeps it hot.
That's
It's
crazy.
amazing.
That's crazy.
It really is. I don't know.
Truly bonus content right there.
It is.
Go get you
You're
one of those
welcome.
mugs.
You referred to this maybe in another interview that I heard you talking about, and you just in the sense of relatability. So me coming to you, having never lost a son, and saying I know what you're going through is clunky and cheesy at best. But you also brought an insight in that conversation that I heard you talk over a number of months ago, heard you referring to, was even the difference between how you and your wife were coping with it versus how your children were coping with it. Because
Absolutely.
everybody relationally is being affected differently and uniquely. This is so good.
This is something that I had to learn. I thought initially that the loss would be the same for all of us. It's so far from the truth, and the not the recovery, you never recover, but the aftermath is different, and the progress is different as you go through toward those stages, eventually to acceptance at some level. But even my wife and I never carried Anthony for 9 months. The relationship of a mother to a son is so different than a father, and my children, I've never lost a sibling, and I know it affected Ryan very differently because they were collaborators. And so when they were writing songs, they would bounce ideas off of each other, and he lost that. I wasn't prepared for the loss of ministry help. I anticipated the loss of the relational, the relationship. I anticipated as I lost a son, how I knew that would be rough. But about 3-4 months in, I felt the loss of my assistant pastor.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
That was a whole different.
Yeah.
Just to hear him say about the loss being, to his wife, it was a son. To his son, it was a sibling. To him, it was a child, but also a piece of ministry. And how, it just sticks out to me that loss is different for everyone.
Yeah, grief. The grief has a different
It
face.
just hits everyone differently,
for
doesn't
everybody, which again underscores, no, you don't know how I'm coping with it. You don't know how I'm doing.
Do you think that's why, and I know we've all had loss in our family, but have you ever noticed, like if you just attend a wake or a funeral, there are hardly two members of that family who are reacting the same?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And that's, to me, that explains it. That explains it. I've never really thought about it until he said it that way, to say, wow, like that's...
I was recently at the memorial service, funeral service for Pastor McLean.
Mm-hmm.
So didn't know the entire family real well, but really, obviously, with Brother Kelly Patrick, very close with them. And so coming in there, in a way, prepared for a church to be grieving the loss of a pastor, prepared for a son and daughters to be grieving the loss of a dad, a wife, a husband. One aspect, again, because I wasn't super close with him, was the business side of it. I mean, he was an ingenious business man, had just opened a coffee shop, etc. So while talking with his son, who I was just meeting for the first time, who was coping with all of these emotions on a familial level, there's some of the family, while that is going on, having to go and take care of business decisions because he was so active in the business community. That's just an angle that it affects you on every different level. So he can be fully prepared for the fact that he's going to lose a son, work through it the first few days afterwards, and then as he gets back into doing ministry again, all of a sudden he's hit in the face with another angle on grief. Grief just has so many different faces.
It's true.
This is a random question, but what do you think about this? How prepared do you think churches and leadership groups are for traumatic losses like this?
I don't think they are. And fair,
Like contingency planning is what I'm trying to say. It's a difficult conversation to even
it is
have,
a very
isn't
difficult conversation to have.
This is a difficult conversation to have with my parents, let alone
Yeah, great point. Great
a
point.
church.
But
Yeah.
Right. So I think you need to have enough in place that that you know what to do, at least where to go and who's going to guide the ship. But honestly, who at 40, 45 is planning on not finishing the week out?
you don't even
And is thinking,
expect
I want this guy to be my successor. Right? So there's a level of tragedy that I don't even think you can be, at least in any sort of or similitude of detailed planning, I don't think you can be prepared for. So you kind of have to put the guardrails on it and say, these are the voices that are going to help navigate. Because our church has been through that.
Yep.
36 years of age.
Yep.
Pastor snuffed out.
Yep. Yeah. It's
So as awkward as it is, the discussions need to be had.
yeah, I think so. I think
Right?
so. I think so.
I heard you recently, you're speaking of them guardrails, right? Making it known to the church who those voices are
For sure.
in case
Who to
of
turn to.
tragedy.
Correct.
Here's who you turn to.
Right.
Here's who's going to help the transition process, right? It's all about
Right.
just talking about it.
Right. And this is getting away a bit from the grief side of it, but
Right.
when you go ahead and observe This is being a bit blunt, and words are getting in the way. So this has got nothing to do with coping with grief.
Oh.
This is now speaking focusedly on the church, the flock that is left. You want to see the sharks start coming out if there's not a plan in place.
Oh my, yeah.
God starts talking to everybody. I mean, everybody knows who's the next pastor is supposed to be, or everybody thinks that they should be the next pastor.
The experts all show up. Yeah.
Boy, they do.
Boy, that happens even on family level.
It happens family, it happens in a business, and
Sure
happens in leadership. When there's a vacuum, right? It just pulls.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that could be another episode
Boy,
to
it
talk
could.
with.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Level.
Yes.
Loss. My collaborator. Always bouncing ideas. I bounce my bottom line off of Anthony every time. And I felt that was like losing a best friend along with a son. And it was like two different things. It was on two different levels. So there are layers to all of this that you have to work through. But I think people that go through loss, if I can help somebody, your family experiences it all at once, but the process is different for each one and each personality. Here's a prime example. We would send pictures in a text thread, and we'd get a text from one person in the group saying, "Not today. I'm sorry. Just make a smaller group. I can't do it today. I can't handle it. I'm melting down, and it's not. This is not helping me." So you have to give people the liberty to heal to a certain level at their own pace. Even close family members. You'd think my wife and I. I'll tell you something that really affected me. This is maybe insightful, but coping. I tell my wife, I got to get out of this house. It was different from our children in this sense. Their spouse didn't lose a sibling.
See, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So they could be they could have a little ballast in the ship, you know what I'm saying? And they could, sorry about the shaking. They could have a little insight that was not the same, and they could encourage a little easier. When I sat in my living room, I could not get away from the fact that everybody in the room had lost a son recently.
That's a statement.
That's huge. Wow.
So I didn't have a spouse that didn't go through, something very similar to what I did. And I would look at Debbie and say, I'm calling some of our closest friends, and we're going to go get a hamburger. And I did. We had a tough time. I remember a day I had to perform a funeral, and I made it through the funeral okay. It was my first funeral after my son had passed. I made it through the service okay. But the drive to the burial hit my wife and I like a ton of bricks. We had not driven to a burial since our son. And we had a meltdown moment in that car. Oh my goodness, I couldn't handle it. And that night I said, I can't do this. There's such a cloud in this house. I can't do this. And we called two couples that we were close to and just went to the hamburger place and just visited. And I was very honest and transparent. I said, we had to diffuse the grief.
What a statement.
We had to diffuse the grief tonight. Such a concentration in that room. I couldn't handle it. So in that sense, I had to be around people right then because
yes.
It just hit all over again. And then you got to have somebody in the room that didn't lose a son.
That's, diffusing the grief.
Yeah.
You got to think that because he was able to diffuse that grief, now he's in a position where he can do this.
Yeah, and in effect is helping diffuse it for
Yes.
countless
Exactly
people,
right. Exactly right.
You know, there's just something to me that was so insightful about the fact that he recognized and has so ably and capably articulated that you got to get around somebody that hasn't lost something. The siblings, his other children, are going home, and there's at least half of the house that hasn't lost a sibling, and they bring that balance there. But he and his wife were suffering in similar ways. Like that's so insightful.
It is. It's incredible.
There is there's a passage of scripture that I'm just looking for here. That just really, resonates, I think, at this moment. Philippians chapter number 3 and verse number 10, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings. That's just, really what he's been talking about. I'm fully aware that is a connection with, the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and that as we suffer, we are fellowshipping with him. We don't like to talk about that side of it. We like talking about the resurrection.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's also this very practical side of what Pastor Trimble has just been speaking about the last few moments, and that is fellowship in suffering. Like the need of knowing how to fellowship someone that is suffering.
Yeah, that's a great point. We don't want to talk about
what to do, how to do it. And I just, it has changed how I, as a pastor, who am exposed to maybe this more than your average, not that like every pastor would be exposed to in more, because you're helping every family through these stages at some point or another. And it has been so helpful to me.
Well, right in those situations, they're looking for answers, or you perceive them to be looking for answers. Yeah,
I feel like that's the expectation.
Right.
So just knowing presence means more than speech. Find something to do. Take care of the dog, take care of the car, get the suit tailored, get it laundered, get the flowers ordered, write the thank you notes, drop off the casserole. Just be present. Like that is just, and don't use words.
Right. Don't dilute yourself down
These
with words.
these are just insightful, revelatory things that will make. I just think it'd be helpful to everyone in our audience.
We got to get him back on. We have to get him back on.
So those of you that are going through suffering right now, we want you to know that we're going to pray for you. We're going to ask God to comfort you like only he can. Because if there's anybody that can relate, it's Jesus Christ. So we trust that this has been a blessing to both you that may be going through a season of suffering and those of us who want to help you. I just think everybody benefits from the discussion that was had today. So chime in and let Pastor Trimble know how much you appreciate him exposing and making himself vulnerable to help us today. God bless you, and thank you for joining us on Kingdom Speak.